Thank you for coming on.
It's a pleasure.
Shall we start with the Kenya shilling, because that's an easy one. The central bank is still mopping up excess liquidity quite aggressively, and that's giving it support, isn't it?
Yeah, to a certain extent it is. We know we've seen quite a bit of activity of the central bank over the last few weeks actually, and actually it's been going on for months. If you look at it over the longer term, there are a lot of expectations that interest rates are going to come off further, and that's causing a bit of weakness on the currency. But I don't think it's really worth it. I think at this point, the central bank, even if they didn't intervene, I think the currency would still hold reasonably well.
We're also expecting a bit of inflows from the tea sector. And then we have the end of the month. Typically, the shilling takes a bit of a beat around that. That's next week.
I don't think at this time that's going to be a very major factor. I mean,
Yes.
We're going to have inflows, tourism is still there. But if you look at the capital expenditure that the country is actually undertaking, the balance of payments still remains a big concern. So at the moment, I don't see that as a major concern. We're also having a lot of FDI coming in.
Right.
So at the moment, I think just leaving the market as it is would be a reasonable move.
Okay, let's move on to the Nairobi Securities Exchange, which is largely flat today. Why isn't there a bit more excitement around here?
Actually, we did have quite a number of movements.
Yes.
So we had about 20 losers and 16 gainers. But if you look at the top 20 companies, they were more or less flat. So the
Yes.
large caps were unchanged, and so the very large movers were mainly on thin volumes.
Okay, let's turn on to we've seen a lot of earnings numbers out today. Let's start from Total Kenya. A significant loss there, 282.8 million shillings. Did the market see this coming?
We've been having bad news from Total for a while now.
Yes.
And to a certain extent, it wasn't a surprise, although the move into a loss was actually a concern for the
And
market.
it's not just a loss of 70 million shillings, it's a loss of 282 million shillings.
Yes. I think if you look at the numbers closer, they did actually post a very significant improvement in operating profits.
Yes.
So operating profits were up 70%.
Right.
And this was despite having a lower gain on asset disposal. So they've been disposing some of their assets. So the key concern for Total here, in our view, we think is the capital structure, because they have a lot of debt. We think for that to be resolved really is to have some sort of capital restructuring,
Right.
reduce their debt level.
Okay, let's move on to NIC Bank, which is one of the smaller banks here when you compare the top five, the KCBs and Barclays and Equities. But NIC Bank says it's looking to buy up to 3 banks and open a Ugandan subsidiary.
Yes.
Are they just being overconfident?
I mean, it's possible for them to have some sort of consolidation, depending on how they intend to buy the smaller banks and how small those banks are.
Is it number 41, 42, and 43? Because that could be the case.
It really depends. I mean, and also depends on what kind of transaction that would be if it is done. Would it be a share swap of some sort?
Yes.
But we know for sure the Uganda subsidiary, they set aside half of the money that they're raising from the rights issue to set up that Ugandan subsidiary.
Does it look healthy from the top?
Yeah, it's doing very well. They released their first half numbers today, up 45%, and even quarter on quarter, they did manage very good growth.
Okay, the other numbers out today is Jubilee Holdings, earnings per share and profit after tax both up 17%. What do you make of Jubilee Holdings and the business it is in?
We like the insurer. It's really the market leader, both in Kenya, Uganda, and more recently in Tanzania as well. They're also looking to expand in over 10 countries over the next 2 or so years. The investments that they've put their premiums, if you look at the energy sectors, they've invested in Bujagali. Within Kenya, their co-investments are actually very good. And so from that perspective, they've managed to hold on reasonably well, and we like their strategy.
Okay, and that market is getting a lot more competitive. They have other listed companies, UAP Insurance and CFC Insurance and all these other people, some of whom are coming even onto the market.
We are seeing a lot of innovative products being launched in the sector. And so I think that's something that's going to go. Microinsurance is something that's coming up. Obviously, more listings given the prudential guidelines and so forth. But I think all in all, Jubilee appears to be holding up reasonably well.
What should we look out for tomorrow? The stocks to look out for tomorrow at the end of the week?
We're expecting East African breweries to release results before trading, and so that's really the key for us.
Yeah, that should be a big one. It has dominated activity for quite a few weeks now.
Yes, certainly. We're expecting very strong numbers from it, even though we still have a sell recommendation, but we expect the numbers to be very good.
And there's a new managing director coming in. They're not too far away. Eric Musau, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.